The first signs were so subtle that no one noticed. A headline about a border dispute in Eastern Europe, eerily similar to one from a century ago. A photograph of a massive protest where the signs and slogans felt uncannily familiar, as though pulled from history books. Professor Adrian Blake, a historian at Oxford, was the first to connect the dots. He had spent his career buried in dusty archives, tracing the patterns of human conflict. But when he began seeing near-identical events unfold in real time, his stomach tightened with dread. It wasn't mere coincidence, it was as if history itself was folding in on the present. At first, his warnings were dismissed. History repeats itself was just a cliché, after all. But then the repetition grew undeniable. A financial crash hit Wall Street, repeating the same sequence of collapses as 1929, down to the hour. Old diseases, once thought extinct, began reappearing in exact order: polio, smallpox, then plague. Even small cultural details seemed stuck in a loop, movie studios remaking films not as reinterpretations, but shot-for-shot identical copies of old classics, without ever admitting they had been made before. The world wasn't just recycling ideas, it was replaying itself. Adrian's unease deepened when he noticed the repetitions weren't just global, they were personal. He found himself living through moments he knew he had already experienced. An argument with a colleague unfolded word for word. His morning train was delayed for the same 27 minutes it had been the week before, with the same man sneezing behind him at the same instant. He tested it by dropping his coffee cup deliberately one morning, and the next day, at the exact same time, the same cup shattered on the same tile. The more he studied, the clearer the timeline became. History wasn't looping randomly, it was progressing forward but forcing humanity to walk through old paths again, decade by decade. Every major event was being rewritten with terrifying precision. The world wars were on the horizon again, only this time with technology far more advanced than in the last century. Adrian began gathering evidence, hoping to warn the public. But the news networks, too, seemed to be trapped, repeating broadcasts from old archives as if they were fresh reports. One night, unable to sleep, Adrian opened an ancient diary in his collection. The entry stunned him. It was written by another historian, dated over 100 years earlier. This man had noticed the same pattern, the same loops, and had recorded his frantic attempts to stop them. His final entry was chilling: "I have failed. Perhaps the next me will succeed." Adrian's hands trembled as he turned the pages. The handwriting was not just familiar, it was identical to his own. Even the ink strokes, the misspellings, the way certain letters curved, it was his writing, as though he had written it in another life. His stomach lurched. He wasn't just observing history's repetition, he was part of it. Desperate, he tried to change the loop. He refused to attend his morning lecture, but hours later he found himself standing at the podium, speaking the same words to his students, as though pulled by invisible strings. He smashed his phone to avoid reading the headlines, but the news still reached him in conversations, following the same path. The repetition wasn't avoidable, it was inevitable. Then came the day everything shifted. A letter arrived in his office, addressed to him in handwriting identical to his own but written with ink so fresh it hadn't dried. The message was brief: "The cycle is breaking. The next war will not end as it did before. Be ready." Adrian's blood ran cold. If history was replaying, there should be no deviations. But here was proof that something was different this time. Either someone or something had forced the loop to change, or he himself had found a way out in another version of the cycle. The next week, the world trembled on the edge of war, nations aligning in the same blocks as before. But when the first missile was expected to strike, nothing happened. Reports flooded in that weapons systems worldwide had shut down simultaneously, as though refusing to fire. Panic erupted, not from destruction, but from the absence of it. History had stalled. Adrian stood in his office, staring at the clock. For the first time in years, it didn't tick in rhythm with his memory. A silence filled the world, heavy and new. He realized the most terrifying truth of all: history wasn't just repeating, it was alive, choosing its path. And now, it had stopped repeating, which meant something else entirely was about to begin.